if you want a stable store value that's going to protect you against inflation and just political corruptness and all of the craziness that's going on in the world today, and you want to be able to take your wealth anywhere with you in the world that you want, in your pocket or on your laptop, Bitcoin is amazing for that.
Hey, welcome back. Joel Irwa here. Thank you for joining me for a blended episode. This podcast is going to be a first. So what I mean by that is this is actually going to be posted and syndicated across both of my podcast platforms because it is relevant to both of my podcast audiences. I am super excited, super grateful, and just ready to dive into today's conversation with the legendary Mike Dillard. Now, Mike and I have connected over the past year, and we've talked about lots of different things. I wanted to have him on this podcast because I recently joined his Richer Everyday program, which is his latest venture in the education space. I am a student of, I think, all of his programs. I could be missing something, but I go back to List Grow, Self-Made Man. He launched a crypto course, and when he launched Richer Everyday, I was trying to be the first person to jump in. I don't know if I officially got.
I think you were. I think you were actually. Yeah, that was cool. I appreciate it.
It was a hidden button, and I just grabbed the code. I'm like, I know I'm going to find the URL here somewhere. And, I hit the checkout, and so. So much respect for Mike, and I'm a student of his copywriting. I followed him because of some of the webinars I watched from him, and it was just completely non-hypey. That is how I got attracted to Mike. And so, Mike, welcome to the show, man. I'm super excited to have this conversation and expose you to my audience. And hopefully they've already been exposed to you. Most of them probably have, but we have a great conversation that we're going to be having today.
Cool. Stoked to be here, brother. Super excited. Thank you for having me on both shows. That's super cool that this is the first time you're doing that. And so I'm honored, and can't wait to dive in today. I think we're going to have a really deep conversation that's going to affect every single person listening, which is, the most I could ask for. So
cool. So the topic of today is going to be Richer Every Day, right? And that is the hook, which is just fascinating. It was how to make $100,000 per month in passive income or passive income, right?
Investment income. Yeah.
Investment income, right? So, totally passive, which is a really, really strong hook. And I've gone through the program and it fulfills on that, right? So it maps out a lot of stuff of like how to get there, right? Let's start with the backstory of what got you to believe, or not even believe, but what got you to this point of wanting to create that passive revenue stream. I know the backstory, but it's a strong backstory. So let's start there.
It's pretty interesting. It was born out of necessity. On June 13th, 2018, I was just taking a break from work, playing PUBG on my iPad, and felt a little click in the back of my brain and said that's probably not good, but it didn't hurt and nothing else kind of happened. So I really kind of forgot about it until that night when I physically couldn't fall asleep, not for a single minute, not with supplements, not with melatonin, not with anything. And then that one night turned into 6 nights, and then 7 nights, and then 8 nights and days of literally not getting a single second of sleep for 7 or 8 days. And at that point, I could feel my body starting to shut down. Called the doctor. They put me on Ambien and Xanax, which I've never been on before in my life. I consider myself a fairly healthy person, and I don't do the pharmaceutical thing, but I was desperate, and I was, if I did not get sleep, you're eventually going to die. So I got on those medications, and I had to take a double dose of both of them to get about 60 to 90 minutes of sleep. And essentially, my body was just completely drenched in cortisol and adrenaline 24/7. So even though I was laying down in my bed wide awake, it felt as if I was running from a tiger or under attack or being chased by someone with a gun or whatever it may be. And that went on for days and then weeks and then months. And then that turned into kind of suicidal tendencies at that point, because you lose your identity and you lose hope. And the biggest challenge for me out of that was the fact that nobody could tell me what was going on. And when you get on Google and you have a health problem and you get on YouTube and you cannot find a single person or story from anyone else in the world that's talking about the symptoms that you're having, that gets really, really scary. And when you go to 3 doctors and they have no idea what's going on, that gets even more scary. And then that turns to a lack of hope, and that turns to desperation. And so, long story short, that went on for almost 2 years. I obviously made progress over that time. We eventually, a year later, found out it was toxic mold. I had a severe toxic mold infection, which was releasing neurotoxins in the brain and putting my body in fight or flight 24/7. So that's essentially what happened. We found that out a year into the challenge, and it'll be 3 years this June. But what made going through that period worse was not having the ability to work and not having any source of real passive income. As a successful business owner used to making millions of dollars a year just by sending out a couple of emails, quite honestly, I never really worried about my ability to make money. And I never, ever expected at the age of 40 to be healthy one day and then dysfunctional and non-functional the next day. Just didn't pop into my realm of reality. Going through this process, unable to work, that made money a huge priority moving forward. And about 2 years in, as I started to come out of this and started to heal from it, Michelle and I decided that we're going to make passive investment income our number one priority, because we never want to be in that position again. And so that's where we started focusing all of our time, all of our attention, and we started to look at different strategies that were available. But what's really interesting is that during that 2.5-year period that I was healing from toxic mold, is really where I gained all of the knowledge and insight that I needed to fix my relationship with money and to actually start to invest successfully. And I'll kind of dive into that here in a moment, as that's really, I think, kind of the meat of Richer Every Day and what makes it so different. But yeah, during that 2.5 years, in going through toxic mold and going through brain injury, it's kind of like going through PTSD. It's kind of like shell shock in a war. If you can imagine, your nervous system comes out of that literally frazzled after having been in that fight or flight state every single day for 2 years. The body and the nervous system are just off kilter. And so to help heal from that, I did every kind of therapy you could think of. I did traditional talk therapy. I did EMDR. I did transcranial magnetic, where they put a big magnet on your head and send signals to that. I did biofeedback. I did electrofeedback, where they put an EKG cap on your brain and measure your brain waves, and then put electrical stimulus to certain areas to bring it back into balance. I did hypnotherapy, which was super effective. And then I also did different plant medicines, not necessarily plant medicines, but psychedelics like ketamine and MDMA therapy, which were incredibly, incredibly helpful and effective for me. But what I realized going through that for 2 years is we were trying to heal my brain from the mold damage. But when you go through that type of work, you also get to go through an entire lifetime of trauma and all of your shit from all of your childhood and everything else that comes up that is stored in your nervous system that essentially you need to heal and get out of your body in order to heal the nervous system. And so kind of by default, I became the ultimate therapy patient, if you will. And as a result of that, I really mastered the brain, your neurochemistry, and how the subconscious works and how the subconscious plays such an important, critical role in every aspect of our lives on a daily basis. And it just gave me an insight into the most powerful parts of our brain and our operating system that 99% of the population are not even aware of. And yet these are the two things that run our lives. And so to bring that back to the context of money, I was like, all right, we have to really focus on building passive income for ourselves. Our goal is to replace my active income and then more on top of that to have fun with. So we made our goal $100,000 a month within the next 3 years to hit that goal. That means we need to have around 15 million fully invested, making anywhere from 8 to 10% a year in order to hit $100,000 a month in passive. So what was interesting is that anybody can go out and read a Robert Kiyosaki book, or they can read a Dave Ramsey book, or Susie Orman, or pick your financial guru. And for the most part, they're going to talk about mindset, and they're going to talk about some kind of methodology or strategy, right? Dave's is don't go into debt. Robert Kiyosaki's is go into debt, so they have their own strategies, but that's basically what it's kept to, is strategy. And when people think about or hear the word investing, that's where their brain goes to. What's the investing opportunity? What's the strategy? What's the return on investment, et cetera, et cetera. But I went through that phase 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I started a company called the Elevation Group, which was designed to really educate myself about different investment strategies. And I went and I interviewed people like Robert and some of the most successful investors in the world, Ken McElroy on real estate, Tom Wheelwright on taxes, right? So, and then I invested a lot of my money, millions of dollars, into all different kinds of investments, oil and gas, man camps, anti-cancer drugs, pharmaceuticals, gold and silver, apartment complexes. Basically, if an opportunity came across my desk, I would write a check and pursue that. I'd say 20% of them paid off, 80% of them did not. And what I realized now, 10 years later, having gone through the therapy that I had to go through for toxic mold, is that entrepreneurs specifically are wired differently than the average person. Mm-hmm. We are wired to take risk. Yeah, we are wired to make fast decisions and to take action. We are wired to, really just jump in with 2 feet, even if you don't have a lot of information. And when you apply that to entrepreneurship, it tends to produce positive results. That's how we build and start companies. But when you apply that to investing and saving money, it's the exact opposite of the characteristics and traits that you want to apply when you're moving into that mode. And so looking back on 10 years ago, the investments that I made, I treated investing just like I would a business idea. I would just get attracted to it, say that looks like a winning opportunity, and I'd write a check and I'd dive in with 2 feet. And at the end of the day, I really realized that I was chasing adrenaline. And I've been an adrenaline junkie my entire life. If I'm not building businesses and putting all of my chips on the table to build a hydroponic robot or, a big e-learning platform or whatever it may be, I'm either racing cars, I'm racing in the Baja 1000, I'm playing competitive video games, and I'm drinking caffeine. And my entire life revolved around adrenaline and risk-taking. And so when I had that awareness, that was a really big epiphany for me. And so as I went through this process, I realized that if you want to build wealth, there's actually 3 things that you have to be aware of. Most people start with the third one, which is the strategy, but that's actually the last piece of the puzzle. What you need to first start with is your neurochemistry. And so all of us have neurochemical associations or addictions that influence our decisions, every single decision that we make, all of the emotions that we have. And for the most part, we're completely unaware of those. So these are all really based on the 5 primary neurotransmitters or hormones that are in our bodies all day long. We have dopamine, we have serotonin, we have oxytocin, we have endorphin, and we have cortisol. The first 4 are all happy hormones. Dopamine is what we feel when we feel pleasure. Serotonin is what we feel when we feel status or satisfaction, or when we feel special, if you will. Oxytocin is what we feel when we feel in love or when we're having physical touch or contact with somebody. And endorphin is what we feel when we are in the gym and feeling that pump and kind of that.
Can I jump in real quick, Mike? Because
yeah, please.
With what you're saying there, one of the questions that I've got that is, when did you start to dissect the brain chemistry? Like, when did you discover that was kind of like the thing? Was that after your health crisis? Like, yeah. Did you learn about brain chemistry during the health crisis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you learn about it? Like, where did you get exposed to the brain chemistry? Like, when was that kind of like revealed to you?
As a part of the challenges I would go through, it involved severe adrenal fatigue. As you can imagine, if you haven't slept, for more than an hour or two in 2 years, a night, that taxes the adrenals in a really severe way. And I went through a severe period of probably 3 to 6 months of extreme adrenal fatigue, where I could barely get out of bed. I could barely walk. I could barely think. When your body is dumping the kind of cortisol that mine was dumping, it has all kinds of side effects. And so then I had to start learning about cortisol, and I just had to start learning about adrenal fatigue and the HPA axis and just the nervous system and how how it provides a feedback loop, and it just kind of keeps you stuck in what is called a limbic loop, where your brain signals your adrenals to put out adrenaline, and then that causes other things to fire off, which keeps your brain stimulated, and it just keeps you stuck in this cycle. And so I started reading books on neurochemistry and those hormones to try and figure out that piece of the puzzle. And then as you realize and you start to study neurochemistry, you start to realize how your neurochemistry is your primal brain's way of controlling you and your decisions and your actions. And a very simple way or analogy to kind of put this in perspective comes into diet and shopping. So cortisol is our one hormone that is our discomfort hormone. Cortisol is what you feel when you feel stress or anxiety or fear. And that's your body's and your brain's way of signaling you, hey, we don't like what's currently going on. We want you to go do something else. Or you need to go take your attention or move your body or get out of this situation. And so whenever you feel stressed or anxiety, your cortisol is going to come up in your body. It's not going to feel good. Your body's going to want you to do something to change that circumstance. And so the antidote to cortisol is one of the other four happy hormones. And so in order to neutralize that cortisol, you have to go do something that produces dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, or endorphin. Now, in our modern society that we live in today, it is easier than ever to have your cortisol stimulated. All you have to do is open your phone and look at the news or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you're inundated with cortisol producing stories and things like that in a way that is completely unnatural, as of even just 100 years ago, where we're getting more cortisol inducing stimuli on a daily basis than most people would get in an entire year back before the internet and those types of television. And so, well, what do? We have to go neutralize that. The fastest way to do that in modern society is to eat food, drink alcohol, or go shopping. And those three things will release dopamine or serotonin, which neutralizes the cortisol. And so you might find we all have our different habits that when you get stressed, you have certain things that you turn to. It's probably a certain food. I know mine is Smart Sweets, these damn little gummy bears that have zero sugar in them, and I'm just totally addicted to those things. Yeah. But in the past, it was caffeine or it was alcohol. Or for other people, it might be shopping, right? It might be jumping on Amazon or going down to Best Buy or whatever it may be. And you get consumed and distracted by the shopping process. And for me, it was cars. I loved cars. So I would spend weeks researching what the next car is that I wanted to buy. And I would end up going and buying that. But making that purchase decision was, well, we'll get into it in a minute on the car side. But making that purchase decision is really, it starts with that little hormone trigger. Mm-hmm. And what happens is, as you go shopping, let's say, to relieve that anxiety or stress that you're feeling, and you get that dopamine hit and your body goes back into more of a peaceful state, your body's like, oh, that worked. That was effective. And then the next time it happens, it knows what to do. And so it's going to want you to go shopping again to fix that problem. Hey, we know this works. Let's go do that again. And then as you start to do that, it becomes a habit, and that habit just becomes ingrained, and it becomes a superhighway within your neural pathways, basically. And it just becomes the default road that gets just, dug in deeper and deeper and deeper. And it becomes habitual. And that's the same thing that's happening with people who have a food issue. And so what's really interesting is we've all tried diets. We've all tried to do things in our life that have required discipline in some form or fashion. And I'll just use dieting as an example, because that's such a primary one that I think a lot of people can relate to. But why do 99% of people fail when they try to get on a diet or try to get into a workout routine over New Year's? It's because they're trying to make this decision and to take this action from a conscious perspective, and they're using willpower to overcome their neurochemistry, their neurochemical habits, and their subconscious programs. And the problem is that you're either not aware of those two things and that they exist and their influence on your decision-making process, which is most people, or if you are, and they're just not compatible. And so if your conscious brain and your unconscious brain are going to get into a contest, your subconscious brain is going to win because it has an infinite number of time and resources, where your conscious willpower requires willpower, it requires effort, it requires discipline, it requires all of these things that have a finite amount of resources. And so that's why people end up quitting, a month later, 2 months later, is because they run out of willpower. And so ultimately the question becomes, what do you need to do in order to pursue the actions that you want to take in life and get the results that you want to get without requiring willpower? Mm-hmm. How do you become completely congruent with that and get your subconscious and your conscious brain on the exact same track so that they're working together and there's zero resistance and it just happens without effort? Well, when it comes to money, the second piece of the puzzle, so the first is our neurochemical habits and addictions. The second piece is our subconscious programming. And so as we feel these emotions that are caused by these hormones, whether it's stress or pleasure or happiness or satisfaction or whatever it may be, those feelings are then going to lead to an action or a decision that is determined by your subconscious program. And an illustration of that might be, I could give 100 people $1 million each. And I could say, your goal and your job is to go invest this. You have to invest it. You can't do anything else with it. You're going to get 100 different results. You're going to get some people who lose all the money. You're going to get some people who don't really make any return. You're going to get a few people who make a spectacular return. So why is that happening? If they had the same resources and the same rules and guidelines and the same investments to choose from, basically, and you get 100 different results, it's because people are viewing the world and their decision-making through their unique lens that is their subconscious program. In the entrepreneur space, we really have two categories of people. We have those like you and I who've really mastered the art of making money, and making money for us is just easy. It's kind of like breathing. It's just, we don't really have any resistance there. For other people, and this was me for a good 5 years when I was first getting my start, I didn't make $1 for 5 years, in my first 5 years in entrepreneurship. And I've observed that I would say 80% of the people who are in the entrepreneur online marketing space are the ones who are reading the courses, buying the books, going to the events, and they still can't really make any money. They've been doing this for years. Maybe they make a few $1,000s, maybe they get up to 10 grand a month. And that's just been their ceiling, and they've never been able to break through or break past that, even though they're doing all of the right things. The reason why that is the case is they have a subconscious program in their brain that is designed to keep them safe and that is preventing them from moving to that next level or to get that result. How could that possibly have anything to do with safety? It's quite simple. When our brains are developing and when most of these subconscious stories are being programmed into us, it's when we're young. It's when we're between the ages of basically 3 to 10 years old, 3 to 13 years old. And if you're ever in a house where your parents demonized rich people or said money is evil or money is bad, or if you went to a church where those kinds of things were taught or preached, if you're in a friend group, right, who was saying the same type of things, well, then guess what? That got embedded into your brain at a very young age before you had the conscious ability to judge for yourself whether it was accurate or not. And for 99% of human history, if you got kicked out of your family or your tribe, that means you were going to die. The only way we survived as a species was as a tribe and by working together. And so it's one of the most primal fears that we have still in our DNA that runs our operating system for day to day, is that we can't get kicked out of the tribe. And so
I want to highlight that real quick, Mike, because when I was going through the program and you talked about that, I mean, that was one of the things that just, it kind of hit home. Like for me, going through this whole cycle, it's like, okay, you do your promotion, $100,000, per month in passive income. Of course, it's going to attract a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. Get in, and then you start to go through the reworking of the brain. And what I respect most about you, and I think this is probably a testament to like your copywriting skills and doing deep research, truly mastering, what you teach, which is what we need way more of in the online education space. This story, or this little tidbit, I'm going to say, or whatever, this fact mm-hmm. that you like, this was like one of the things that was just like, damn, like it hit, like, okay, mm-hmm. like I'm bought in. I know it's mindset stuff. I know like there's a lot of like mental reworking, which I've done some studying on in the past, but like when you talked about this specifically, I was like, that was one of the things that was just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to verbally emphasize for my listeners, like let's pay attention to this part. This was something that hit home for me.
Yeah. No, that's really cool to hear, because, I think my most hated phrase in copywriting is "it's not your fault." Like, it's such a cliche thing that I just can't stand it. And this is the first time in my life where I actually can say that with honesty and in full integrity, and say, if that's something that you've experienced in your life, it is actually not your fault, because you're not aware of a subconscious program in your brain that's causing you to make decisions that are actually going against what you're trying to achieve consciously. And so for me, it's so critical to make people aware. And that's really the first step in this process, is awareness of what's going on and what chemical associations do you have, what subconscious programs are running in your background that are holding you back. And so for people who, again, who've been in that situation and who've maybe had that programming embedded in them when they were young, and they're trying to consciously make money now, if your brain thinks and your subconscious thinks that if you make money, you are going to be judged and considered bad by your tribe and you're going to get kicked out and die, it will not let you make money ever. And so if you happen to win the lottery, if you happen to do really well in crypto or whatever it may be, then guess what? Your brain will find a way to very quickly have you get rid of that money, which is why 90+% of lottery winners go broke. It's because their subconscious programming is not in alignment with the money that they have in the reality, and their subconscious is going to take over. It's going to cause them to make decisions to lose that money so they can get back to what the brain perceives as safe. And the brain doesn't perceive a lot of money in your bank account as necessarily safe. Yep. It prioritizes tribe over money in a bank account for sure. And so that's why that will always prevail and dominate your results in life until you become aware of the programs that you're running and then address them.
And that's, I would echo that. That's not even for the person who's struggling to make like 10 grand a month.
It's everybody. We all have stories.
Yes. Everyone and it like, so for me personally, this came up as like, I never really had any issues making money. Like I didn't, let me rephrase that. Until a certain level of income that I achieved, I didn't have those stories. Like I was not afraid of money. I knew how to make it. But we recently just purchased our first vacation rental as an investment property. And I have noticed that like, as I start to talk about these things, which have now like, my family never did that. Like my family never did investment properties. I've never done a lot of things that I've never done. Like, they've always supported me as an entrepreneur, but that was the career. They had careers. I had a career. Mine was a little bit different, but now it's like I'm doing different things with my money. And now that's different from them. And I've seen that when I talk about that, I get weird vibes. It's not necessarily weird vibes. They're not trying to squash me, but it's almost judgy. It is definitely a judgy vibe. And I've had this conversation with my wife, about different people that we talk to about this. And then we decide not to share it with them because we don't want that judgment. And that's a bad loop to be in. Like for me, I like talking about that stuff. And so for me not to be able to, I mean, it does have a ripple effect on what I do next. And so
guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Do you risk being ostracized by your current friend group who's not comfortable with the kind of success that you're having?
Yeah. So it happens not just at the beginner stage of like, oh, like you want to be an entrepreneur or whatever, you want to make your first 10 grand and your family's never done that or whatever. It happens further down the pipeline too, where you might not expect it. I definitely didn't expect that to happen, but it does. Yep.
Yeah. And another quick example of how this manifests that's incredibly common is for those of you who do start to make money more than you've ever made in your life, you're going to find yourself starting to spend it and to spend more money than you've ever spent in your life. And why is that? Again, it goes down to the neurochemistry. One, it's every time you go shopping, you're getting a dopamine hit, but every time you go shopping, also you're getting a huge serotonin hit. And serotonin is what your body releases when it wants to when it wants you to pursue increasing your status within your community, when it wants you to demonstrate your value to other people in the community. So when you feel confidence, that's serotonin. And what is the role in serotonin? Well, basically, serotonin is your body's way of saying, hey, the more resources that we go acquire and the more we demonstrate our position or hierarchy in society. And again, you have to go back to the majority of 99% of human history. That's not modern society today. Your body wants to do two things. It wants you to survive and it wants you to procreate. And it says, hey, if we get more resources and get successful at acquiring more resources, and we get successful at demonstrating our value in the tribe, we're going to be we're going to have access to more mates or higher quality mates, or our chances of having offspring increase. And we're going to increase our ability to keep our offspring safe and to provide for them and give them the resources that they need. And the higher up we are in society, the more protection we're going to have from our other tribe members, right? And so it's all about status. Serotonin is the status chemical. And so in our modern day life that we happen to live, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're not married and don't have kids yet, this really comes into play. So why is the entrepreneurship space, for the most part, obsessed with supercars? Right? We've all had them on posters since we were kids, or on our phone, or on our vision wall, or we were wanting to drive it. But it's something that almost every young entrepreneur, especially in their 20s, aspires to have. Ladies, for you, it might be the Pradas or the Gucci purse or whatever it may be that you aspire to have. And your body is driving you to go buy those things, whether it's a nice pair of shoes or the Rolex watch or the car that you're driving, because that is how we demonstrate our status in a modern day world. When we walk around and we walk outside, we're not wearing our bank account on our chest, right? Which would demonstrate how much resources we have available to us. We don't do that. The way that we demonstrate that is through visual cues, like the car we drive, the shoes we wear, the clothes we're wearing, and the watch we wear. And so your body literally wants you to go spend money to get those status symbols in society that visually demonstrate, hey, I'm a high value individual and I'm potentially a good mate. And that's why you see that dynamic between men and women and whoever's successful, and just that whole dynamic is taking place. And so for me, that was just a massive light bulb moment, because I've owned like 15 supercars. I've literally bought, I think, $2 or $3 million worth of supercars, if not more than that, over the last 15 years. And I always thought that I was just into cars. Turns out I wasn't. Turns out what my brain really wanted me to do is to demonstrate my status until I found a mate and had offspring. And what's interesting is once you do that, you find a mate and you have offspring, is the status stuff tends to just kind of dissipate. It doesn't become as important to you anymore. Well, that's because your brain got what it wanted and it doesn't need to drive you in that direction anymore. And so if you can just make people aware of that, and so that they understand why they're making the purchase decisions that they're making, instead of for the reasons that they think they're making them, it empowers them to make a different choice for a healthier reason. And what's really interesting is in American society, or modern society specifically, we're getting thousands of messages a day from professional marketers and professional companies who have a plan for the money that you have made. And that plan is to take it from your pocket and to put it into their pocket. And we have that skill set, right? You and I can recognize exactly what's going on, and we can see what's happening, but most people can't. And what ends up happening is modern marketing has trained our nervous system to release dopamine whenever we go buy something, because that's what we're told to do, is to pursue material goods, and that those are going to make us happy and make us feel better about ourselves. And so as we start to fall into that trap and spend more money and get dopamine, or spend more money and get serotonin, and those neural pathways get dug in and get entrenched, then that becomes our default go-to. And Joel, if that's your default go-to whenever you make money, is that you go find a place to spend it, are you ever going to build wealth? Yeah, obviously the answer is no, right? And so you have zero chance of actually building wealth if that's the neural connection that has been made in the program that you're running. And so I call that is when people have an inverted dopamine response. It means they're getting a dopamine release when they're doing things that are actually bad for their longevity and long-term goals. And the people who are actually really wealthy in life, the entrepreneurs who are very wealthy, and I'd say maybe this is 5% of all entrepreneurs that I've ever met, meaning they've made a ton of money and then they've not spent it, but they've wisely invested it and they've saved it and they've built real wealth and passive income. They have a normalized dopamine response, meaning they get dopamine whenever they save money or invest money, and they actually get cortisol when they spend money. And that means that it's effortless for them to build wealth because their neurochemistry, their subconscious programs and their conscious programs are all aligned, and they're all going in the same direction. They're not having to drag any one of those pieces up the mountain with them that eventually is going to pull them back down. And again, for most people, that's simply not the case. Their conscious goals are in conflict with their chemical programs and their subconscious programs, right, which means they're just going to find a way to sabotage themselves. So yeah, I think that's kind of the big discovery that I've made for myself in my life, and I could go back and see how this played out 100 different ways in my life. And once you have that awareness, then you can move into the next phase of the program, basically, which is how do you rewire your brain and change your neurochemical associations and interrupt those patterns so that you can start to train in new ones that are aligned with the goals that you actually want to achieve. And when you do that, then it just becomes automatic and effortless.
Yep. Yeah, it has been a fascinating experience to kind of go through that. And I've done some training on this in the past. Dr. Trevor Kashey is somebody who I've paid a lot of money to, and he's been on the podcast a couple of times. He focuses a lot on habits, and he's probably the smartest person that I've ever met. And I think you two would get along real well just based on what you're talking about and what I know he knows, because he runs a diet and health program, but it's all focused on mental. Like it's all mental. It's like, count your calories and get a good macros, you'll be fine. Like, but that's the easy stuff. Like I got to work on the back ends, the internal stuff. And so, we haven't even talked about like the number of strategies that you cover inside of the like the how-to stuff, like how to actually produce the money. One of the things I want to talk about real quick is this idea of passive income. I see it being used all the time and just kind of like bastardized. And, it's funny, like, and I think this might even happen, from your experience, I'm sure you've learned about passive income before you had your crisis and realized I really don't have any passive income, right? I mean, why do you think that is? Like just the idea of passive income, like, is it abused? Is that term kind of abused? Do people think they have it, but they don't? Like, what do you think is the misnomer with passive income?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there's different definitions of it, right? Like, and when I got my start 20 years ago as an entrepreneur, it was in network marketing. So the whole sales pitch of network marketing is passive income, right? You make passive income off the downline that you build and whatever it may be. And that's, to some degree, it can be true. After you build up a huge organization, sure, you're going to make some passive income, but eventually, if you stop showing up, or building your organization, it's going to dwindle every month and get smaller and smaller until it goes down to zero. So for me, that's not really passive income. We see the same thing in affiliate marketing, right? Passive income from affiliate links. Kind of a little bit semi-passive. So my definition of passive income is income that is going to come in no matter what, whether I show up ever, again to work or not. And so that to me is rental real estate. It's dividend stocks, it's high yield crypto savings accounts today. It's RV parks, it's storage units, it's things like that do not require your time or attention. It's a short-term rental, real estate, or even long-term rental real estate. And you can, those are all considered for the most part businesses, but you can outsource the management of those businesses and literally never have to be involved in those at all, ever. And that money is just going to come in every single month. So for me, I really constrain my definition of passive income to passive investment income. And investment there is the key word for me. If it's not that, it's not real passive income in my personal opinion. And so, why do people have trouble? Why is that word used so much, but people have trouble doing it? It's because the promise is very sexy. A lot of money for little work or no work. The strategies are available. You can go to any bookstore and buy 1,000 books on real estate or dividend stocks or whatever it is that you want. But then you run into problems one or two. And those are the two components that are actually the most important. And if you don't address those first, then the strategies are irrelevant. They're either not going to work or you're going to screw them up. And to me, that's when I looked out at the finance industry in my life. I was like, just huge light bulb moment of like, nobody has put this together. Nobody has figured these two other pieces, the equation out or talked about them. And for me, that's why I'm so excited to kind of share this with the world. And, folks like you and so many other successful entrepreneurs in the program, is because this is a genuinely new paradigm shift for folks. It was for me, it was for you, it has been for our other members. And it's been the missing piece of the puzzle that has never been talked about in any of these other books or programs. And it's why people typically don't get results from any of them. So for me, that's why we do it in that order. We address your neurochemistry, we address your subconscious programs. And then once we do those things, well, then we get into the actual investment strategies and what do you do with your money? Because then you're in a place where you're aligned and you're actually going to make some good decisions when it comes to that cash.
So you talk about lots of different strategies inside the program. I probably know the answer to this, but I'm going to tee it up anyway. Which one gets you most excited?
Which one was most exciting?
Which one gets you most excited? Like keeps you excited today?
Well, there's two of them. I know your guess is probably crypto, but there's two strategies for me. I have realized as I've put this program together and looked back at my life and the friendships and the mentors that I've had, the people who are the most successful with money that I personally know all put their focus into one single investment strategy until they basically hit their freedom number. They didn't have to worry about money anymore. And then they started to diversify. So I have many friends who've made a ton of money in real estate, and all they ever did was real estate. I have other friends who've made hundreds of millions of dollars in stocks. All they ever did was stocks. And so I think that's a really important thing to bring up, because a lot of people talk about, the importance of diversification, et cetera, et cetera. Diversification is fine if you're just looking to preserve your capital. It's not going to make you wealthy. It's going to help you not go broke, basically. But if you want to become wealthy, your return on your investment is directly related to your amount of expertise that you have in that investment category. The expertise is what's going to allow you to reduce risk and to increase your ROI, because you have a knowledge advantage and an experience advantage over the other 99% of the people who are also in that same investment category. And so I think that's really important, is to kind of pick your path and stick to that and master it. And then once you've reached your goal, then diversify for wealth preservation. For me, that vehicle has become crypto. I started buying Bitcoin in 2013 when it was $75. I started buying Ethereum in 2017 when it was $7. And it's something that I have studied and followed an hour to a day, every day since 2013, basically. It has also, as you can imagine, been a very fruitful investment. And so for me, that's the single most effective investment strategy and vehicle that I've ever used, but I put the time into it. I also lost close to what will be in this cycle, close to $100 million in crypto, meaning in 2013, I bought 400 Bitcoin for $30,000 total. And the next year, it got stolen when Mt. Gox got hacked. So if you take 400 Bitcoin and you multiply it by $100,000, that's $40 million. If Bitcoin hits 200 grand, that's going to be $80 million that I'm going to have lost at this point. And so it did not happen without its downsides, without its risks, without its losses. I didn't just get lucky. Like, the amount of money I've made in crypto, I've earned with 1,000 arrows in my back right at this point. And so for me, it makes sense to make that my primary strategy, which is what I've done. And above and beyond that, our plan is to cash out crypto at the top of this bull run, as close as we can get to the top. And then I'm really interested in real estate, and specifically short-term rental real estate. So we live in Austin, and kind of my dream is to buy a big piece of property and build just amazing different homes or rental homes on there that'll provide all different experiences. It might be geodesic domes or teepees or tree houses or whatever it may be, and then fill that space with animals, fill it with zebras and chickens and goats and make sure it has an amazing view and a bonfire pit and a pool, and just make it an experience that differentiates that property from anything else that's available in the area. And so for me, that's really appealing because it appeals to my creative side. It provides passive income. It's an asset that's going to grow over time. It's going to reduce my taxes. It's going to put smiles on a ton of people's faces. They're going to make lifetime memories there. And so it just hits kind of all my buttons. So for me, after we cash out in crypto, I will then start to diversify, and I will start to diversify from into real estate primarily.
Awesome. Yeah, real estate gets me excited. I'm interested in crypto because we're just in a hot cycle right now, not just because. It took me a long time to wrap my head around it. In the time that we've got left, we got about 8 minutes left. I would like to just dive into a little bit about crypto because I think it is such a hot topic right now, and a lot of people would probably want to hear just some conversation around it.
Sure.
I don't want to get around the basics of like what is crypto, what is that stuff. There's tons of videos out there that you can that you can learn, and if you do join either Mike's crypto course or Richer Every Day, he does give you additional resources there. But I've personally been diving into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I watched a debate the other day, which I wanted to see the other side. Right, everyone's talking about the upside, right? But I also wanted to see the other side, and I think there were some interesting arguments made from the opposite side with Bitcoin. Then I dove into Ethereum. And so I see potential with both, but me personally, I think Ethereum is fascinating. What is your opinion on Ethereum? Like with that being,
that's my biggest holding. If that tells you anything. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So Bitcoin has recently become and been accepted as basically the replacement for gold as a global store of value. It serves all the benefits that gold does, but it does it better in every single way. And so the world is turning Bitcoin into digital gold, and that's awesome. If you want a stable store value that's going to protect you against inflation and just political corruptness and all of the craziness that's going on in the world today, and you want to be able to take your wealth anywhere with you in the world that you want, in your pocket or on your laptop, Bitcoin is amazing for that. Ethereum it has more abilities, right? It's a programmable smart contract platform that you can use to make all kinds of software on and applications on. And many people think that Ethereum and or one of its competitors like Cardano are going to be the platforms that power the world into the future. And I happen to absolutely agree with that. And we can see that happening now if we do nothing else than to look at decentralized finance and what has happened in that space over the last 2 years, which has all built up till this point on Ethereum. And so people have been able to replicate and duplicate just about every service that you can find in the traditional finance and banking world, meaning lending, derivatives, decentralized trading from one asset to another, insurance, custody, all of these critical components that essentially build up our financial and banking system have been replicated on Ethereum in a decentralized fashion. And you can now use these platforms to conduct those same activities with no middlemen, with nobody's permission, with no fear of your funds being seized by the government or the bank or whatever. You can do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't need to do a credit application. You don't need to have a bank account. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't have to have a credit score. It gives you full, complete autonomy, sovereignty, and control over your money and what you want to do with it. And these applications, because they're decentralized, once they're launched, they cannot be stopped. Once they are on the Ethereum blockchain, it can never be shut down. There is no one to arrest. There is no company headquarters to raid. There is no office to sue. Well, how does that work? Well, they're all completely transparent. So the code is transparent, which means you can go in and verify that this is going to work the way that it says it works. There's no secret hidden backdoors or trapdoors or whatever. So it's built on complete transparency. And when you have complete transparency, that gives you complete trust. And when you have trust, then you have the ability to transact. And the Ethereum blockchain enables people to do that in a fully trustless manner. And so we're now seeing, hundreds of billions of dollars already locked up in these DeFi programs and lending programs in this ecosystem. And so it's just literally taking off like a rocket right now. And that process is going to continue. Right now, the biggest complaint the world has is that it's slow or the fees are high. The Ethereum gas fees are like $20 now, right? Or a transaction on Bitcoin might take 15 or 20 minutes, which means you can't buy groceries with it at the grocery store. All of those are technological issues that are being and will be improved, just as every computer, phone, and other technological device has always improved and gotten better every single year. So when a competitor like Cardano launches in a couple of months with their smart contract platform, there's going to be if you want a special tip here to make a shit ton of money, that is going to be a massive opportunity. When Cardano launches smart contracts,
it is launched, right?
It is, but not the smart contract functionality.
Got it.
So that's going to be when its Goguen update is done, which is supposed to be this summer. You will be able to build smart contract applications on Cardano, just like Ethereum. But Cardano is going to be 100 times faster. It's going to be 100 times more efficient. It's going to be even more decentralized. It's going to be better than Ethereum in every single way that you can think of. And so now transactions are going to be a penny a piece, and they're going to happen within a second. Ethereum 2, which they're working on, is going to provide those same types of improvements and advantages. And so, Peter Schiffs and the naysayers of the world like to come and poo-poo on crypto because it's slow or expensive or whatever it may be. To not acknowledge that technology always and continually has improved and it gets better is just pure ignorance, in my personal opinion. And so if we know that it's going to get faster, it's going to improve, the capabilities that are going to get better, the adoption is going to continue to grow, crypto is just going to consume the entire technological world. The next internet is going to be built on it so that people can bypass the firewalls in China and eventually the firewalls that are being built in the United States. It's how we're going to get real social media that's unedited. It's how we're going to be able to post things that can't get censored. And it's how we're going to be able to do transactions with our money and control our money in ways that, again, can't be seized by someone who doesn't like you or who wants to sue you or, for whatever reason it may be. It's the single biggest innovation in human history since the invention of the first fiat currency. Yep. So,
yeah, my only hesitancy with Bitcoin is that it has a ceiling. And let me be clear, I'm still very new in this. And so, but my understanding is it took me a long time to understand Bitcoin. And so that in itself shows that there's a ceiling, because we have people that still aren't even on the internet yet, and who can't even use email. And so for them to adopt a new currency, that just shows it's got some sort of ceiling. I'm sure it still has a ways to go, but I look at Ethereum and I don't see that, because that's built for, I think it's built kind of for the tech people to use it and build apps on. That doesn't need my 90-year-old grandmother to adopt it, but she could still use it unknowingly because of other things that are happening around it. And so that's why I got really excited about Ethereum. And I haven't done any research on Cardano. I've heard of it, but I didn't realize it was a competitor to Ethereum. But those are just my 2 cents from comparing those two over the past few weeks and few months of doing some research.
The opportunity is in the fact that it takes a learning curve right now.
Yeah.
Right. That's why there's supposedly 100 million people around the world that are somehow involved and active in crypto. And it's because there is a learning curve involved. And, within the next 3 to 5 years, all of that technology is going to become invisible. Like a Square has made it with the Cash App, right? You can go on the Cash App right now and buy Bitcoin with 2 clicks and never even have to know how Bitcoin works, so now that PayPal is doing the same thing and Venmo is doing the same thing and all the credit card companies are integrating and the banks are integrating crypto, it's just going to be, kind of like sending an email or sending a text at some point, or swiping your credit card. And the tech's really just going to become invisible in the next couple of years. You're not going to need a Trezor hardware wallet or any of that bull crap. It's that stuff is early adopter tech, which is awesome, because it means we're early and there's still a lot of meat on this bone from an opportunity perspective. But again, it does require that learning curve that you're talking about. So,
Mike, fascinating stuff, man. This is, I love just having intelligent conversations with intelligent people. And this is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. Where can people go find more information about Richer Every Day? Where can they go find you and follow you, let's drop some links.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I'm just at MikeDillard.com. And if you guys are interested in Richer Every Day, we did a private launch a couple of months ago to my audience, which is when Joel joined the program. So thank you for that. Appreciate the support. And that was kind of our beta round, right? To make sure we had a great program in place and that people understood it and knew how to use the system and all of that good stuff. And it's been an awesome experience. So we're currently closed. If you guys are interested in the program and if you would like to join, I will put up a special page just for Joel's audience. And we will also honor the special launch price that we did when we released a couple of months ago. We're going to launch this program to the public, I'd say probably in the next 60 days. And we're going to be raising the price substantially because I am also a student of Joel's, and we're going to turn this into a high ticket program when we do that. So yeah, if you guys want to check it out, if you're like, man, he's talking about me, this is an area of my life that I could really use help with, just go to richereveryday.com/Joel. We'll put up that original page with the original price for a few days and let you guys take advantage of the program. And I think it's going to change your life. This is the fun part for me with Richer Every Day is if you go through it and you use it, it is impossible not to start getting a little bit richer every single day. Like it's impossible not to, which is kind of fun. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, richereveryday.com/Joel. And I'd love to hook you guys up.
Appreciate it, Mike. Yeah. One final plug for it. I mean, this is, the strategies will make you money. I'm a testament for that. There's one strategy that will make you legit almost 9% passive income just for holding your money. I mean, it's a high yield savings account that I had never been aware of. And it's one of the things that Mike reveals. And in like that alone worth the measly price of the program. And so not only that, but you will learn how to rewire your brain and apply that to diet, apply that to exercise, apply that to relationships, whatever you feel. That model, as Mike calls it, inside the program is applicable for all areas in your life. So head over to that link. We'll drop a link in the in the show notes, and go follow Mike if you haven't. It's he's worth all of the information that he puts out and he publishes, and you won't be disappointed. So thanks again, Mike. And for everyone listening, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks for having me.